Hello and welcome to Tools in the Shed, a podcast powered by CarsGuide, ready to rip into car stuff that's caught our eye this week. I'm CarsGuide Deputy Editor James, and with me are two of our key contributors, Chesto and Byron. Welcome.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening.
This week we're looking at the other large SUV. Nissan's Patrol is on fire currently with a NISMO performance version potentially in the wings. So we want to talk about that. We'll discuss a trio of recent entries to the CarsGuide garage, and we'll catch up with an eco-warrior dressed as Wario in this week's MuskWatch. YouTubers, you can jump ahead courtesy of the time codes in the notes below, and you can click on the chapter markers in the timeline. So let's go. And we're going to start. Chesto, it's great you're in the podcast because this story has been creating a lot of interest during the week.
Yeah.
A lot of chat about 200 series LandCruiser morphing into 300 series, but under the radar almost in the background, Nissan's Patrol, long-time competitor for LandCruiser, has been going pretty well. And it's the one with a V8, not only a V8, but a petrol V8 under the bonnet. Tell us what you found in terms of how it's going in the market and other bits and pieces connected to it.
So we'll circle back to the exciting one in just a second, but we'll focus on the Patrol itself for a moment. And you're right,
Okay.
At the moment it is deemed the sort of other large SUV, isn't it? Because all the talk, all the news has been about around the Land Cruiser. But in the background, this petrol-powered sort of off-road icon is just racking up sales and racking up sales. So they sold around 3,000 last year, which is 4 times the number they sold in 2017. They sold 900 already this year, putting them on track to sell about 3,500. So
and Chesto, correct me if I'm wrong, it's pretty much the same car that was on sale in 2017. There's not a lot of fundamental change to it?
There have been some updates, but
Updates, okay.
nothing fundamental. Like, it's that idea of just tickling around the edges.
All right.
Cosmetic, certainly nothing mechanical. For example, the current car, as I understand, it doesn't get Apple CarPlay or Android Auto or anything like that. So it's got some sort of old tech in it. But
Does it have Bluetooth and cruise control?
Yes.
It's so old.
But it is certainly not deterring people. And the interesting thing there was that the boss of Nissan in Australia, Stephen Lester, was told when he got here, and he's on the record as saying this, that people told me we'd never sell any more Patrols because it's petrol only, and people diesel in that kind of a vehicle.
Yeah.
And here we are a few years later, and sales are through the absolute roof. Now, part of that is circumstance, of course. I think the Rona helps in that scenario. I think the ever-growing queues for LandCruiser probably helped in that scenario, and the ever-increasing prices. But we're at a point now where there's a between 9 and 12-month wait for a new Patrol.
What?
It's almost a perfect storm for a car like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
To me, the Patrol encapsulates where the world has gone from an automotive point of view in that topsy-turvy, unpredictable kind of manner. And in 2019, I thought surely this car is at the end of its line. It's become irrelevant. It's too big. It's going to be, it's already outmoded. And suddenly it's had this second life, which has probably been the Patrol way since the 1950s when it first appeared.
Well, the last time I drove one, I remember looking at it and I thought, this is very much about the US market. No surprise there. And isn't it obscene? It's so big and it's got this enormous petrol engine. And then I drove it. It was so good. It's so good in terms of meeting the brief for what it's meant to deliver. Sorry, Chesto, continue on.
No, well, that's right. I mean, look, that's their argument as well, is that people think of diesel as a towing car. People think of diesel as a cross-country car, but they've found, and I guess their customers are proof in the pudding, that actually this petrol V8 does everything most of its customers could ever want it to do, really. The exception being people who are on really rural properties who might not have access to petrol for whatever reason.
Right.
But for most people, it seems to be a pretty suitable answer.
It's so comfortable. I mean, and that V8 is A, geared, and B, engineered to be not lazy, but very smooth. And it's not a racy car by any stretch, but it's got plenty of torque, and it's a super nice car to drive.
Yeah,
sounds great too.
Yeah.
Sounds great too. Mate, to be honest with you, I saw one just yesterday. I was picking up a car. There's a facility in Sydney, dear listeners, where most press cars live to go and collect for reviews. And it was parked there waiting for collection. In fact, by a CarsGuider, I think, James.
Okay.
I haven't seen one in some time. I was struck again by just how massive it is. And when you see it lined up against like a whole host of other cars from other brands and different body styles, mate, it still towers above them. Like
it's huge.
Mm.
Well, that's part of what goes through your mind. the amount of material that has gone into the construction of this vehicle is just obscene. And then you drive it and go, oh, but it feels so good.
You've got to say that Nissan did a good job facelifting it as well to differentiate it from the 2010 BC AD, the 2010 version.
Righto.
It was inside and out. So they actually did, clearly with minimum funds. I think they did a great job.
Because in the States, it's Armada. Is that right? Does that ring a bell with you guys?
Yep.
That's correct.
I mean, it's a little different, but it's essentially the same vehicle, and you can feel that this is meant to cruise down a freeway and do it very well. It does that brilliantly well.
Also very popular in the Middle East, again, where petrol V8's a pretty sought-after engine.
Yes, more often on two wheels, I would have thought. At high speed, two wheels. It's very popular on that one.
Which, although Byron does raise an interesting point about their ability to differentiate. So news broke about 2 weeks ago. In fact, it broke from Nissan. They revealed the damn thing, which was the Nissan Patrol NISMO V8. Yep. And again, the point of differentiation there is that it's going to be a sort of road-focused performance patrol, which, even as I utter those words, sounds slightly ridiculous, but it does look like an absolute mean machine. It's lined in the Nismo red, etc. It does look just like a bit beefier and a bit angrier.
Yep.
But critically, they've also worked on the V8 engine. So we know the engine it's got at the moment puts out a not insignificant 298 kilowatts and 560 Newton meters.
Yeah.
But they say that the what Nissan call the Takumi craftsman team, the same people who build the GTR, were let loose on the Nismo, and they've sort of managed to up the outputs to 320 kilowatts, 560 Newton meters, which is pretty impressive. There's also sort of ducting and downforce and rear spoilers and all that kind of stuff, better braking performance, high-speed handling changes, Bilstein shock absorbers. And the point, as Nissan openly says, is to provide sportier and improved handling. The question being improved from what?
Well, at the moment,
is a lot.
You're talking 1960s land yacht in the States at the moment in terms of one finger to twirl the wheel.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But what I love about this car is all the reasons we've just discussed. It is vaguely ridiculous. It's this on-road performance-focused block of units, basically, powered by this thumping V8 engine. And so as a result, we kind of assumed that Australia probably wouldn't be interested in it. And in fact, the sort of word we got out of them initially was that they're working on a Patrol Warrior, which Byron will tell us all about in just a second. And that's going to sort of fill the Patrol performance hole in this market.
Right.
At some point over the last couple of weeks, that began to change, potentially because they honestly can't sell enough Patrols at the moment, or they can't get enough Patrols at the moment. So suddenly there is a bit of interest in that model. And from the CEO on down, they're talking about the possibility of doing a 3-tier Patrol lineup in Australia.
Because Chesto, just to jump in, am I right in thinking that the Nismo is essentially, initially anyway, a Middle East special, that it only goes there?
That's correct.
Right.
Yeah. For the time being.
That was the market where this vehicle was originally intended for, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The Y62 was a Middle East market focused.
That's right.
I believe it was unveiled there and launched there.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah. I was still in school, of course. But
it might go elsewhere, but certainly it was revealed in the Middle East as, clearly as a Middle East sort of based model. But Australia is now interested in it. So in coming months or years, the Patrol lineup could go Nissan Patrol, Nissan Patrol Warrior, which is, of course, the Australian produced model like the Navara Warrior.
Yep.
And then this Patrol Nismo sitting at the very top of the tree.
Or as Crafty would call it, the Warrior.
The Warrior, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Once we're warriors.
Now the price in the Middle East, if you do a straight conversion for the Nismo, is about 140,000 or 138 grand. It'll be more than that in Australia. The standard Patrol at the moment, I think it's just really undergone a price increase, again based largely on its popularity, and you're looking at above 6 figures to climb into it.
Yeah, right.
If they manage to bring the Nismo in at 138, I'd be fairly shocked. I think you'd be looking at 150 plus potentially. Yes.
That's a fair chunk of change, but a Nismo Patrol would be just amazing.
And then just to flip the script on that for 1
Yeah.
second, you know, of course, that Land Cruiser is looking at GR Sport, potentially even GR branded Land Cruisers. In fact, they've just put on a new twin turbo V8 engine in the US that pundits are sort of predicting could find its way into a sporty flavored Land Cruiser. Right. So when it's not beyond the realms of possibility where you could your traffic light derby could be a Patrol Nismo parked alongside a GR Land Cruiser.
And the whole formula for Bathurst is solved at one go. You've just got Patrols and Land Cruisers.
And when they pull off the line, the torque and grip actually sends the world spinning backwards.
Well, they're climbing a mountain, for goodness sake.
I'm getting car sick just thinking about the lack of body control and the.
That's right.
But that's
people who know me know that the more ridiculous, the better. So I say bring them both on.
Exactly.
Anything that makes the roads a more interesting place, I'm into.
Yeah, very good. And we did touch on that Warrior, Byron, the Warrior.
And not the Proton Warrior, but the...
Correct. Yeah. So there's already the Nissan Navara N-Trek Warrior that is a local, as in an Australian execution done with local engineering. Can you just enlighten us on what a Nissan Patrol Warrior might look like?
Certainly. And in no way am I reading my story online at the moment from the 10th of November on carsguide.com.au. Please check it out. So late last year, I had a bit of one-on-one time with Nissan Australia Managing Director, Stephen Lester, and he pretty much confirmed, well, he did confirm that the upgrade to the Warrior is coming, to the Patrol is coming along the lines of what Nissan is doing with the Navara, or has done with the Navara. We know that the facelift Navara is going down the Warrior route too, but the Patrol is in parallel development down here in Melbourne with Premcar, the specialists in this field, and they do a great job. Anyway, I think even by late last year's standards, they realized that they were sitting on they are sitting on a potential landmine, gold mine.
Yeah, that's right.
Not a landmine. Maybe a couple of years ago it would have been, but certainly a gold mine as to what they can do with the Patrol.
Yeah.
And with the Warrior, it's not going to be, a massive uptake in a massive rise in performance or that sort of thing, but it's going to be a package we believe that is going to give it a suitably sporty look. At that stage, the Nismo Patrol kind of connection was still up in the air. This could be, as Chesto said, a kind of a three-tiered.
That'd be amazing
thing. And the Patrol. Look, Patrol is probably the oldest brand that Nissan has, sub-brand, and they should exploit this. It's got it has the Land Cruiser style heritage.
Does
great name. I'm surprised that it's not exploited more to for there to be a smaller Patrol Sport or a Patrol Ute kind of.
Well, that three-tier, for example, could be your luxury standard car. That's the very comfortable cruiser. Then your Warrior, which is suspension, the big floaty tires, the tough rims, and that's getting you more off highway. And then you've got your Nismo, which is very much focused for on the road, tighten it up, get rid of that floatiness, but exploit the V8 a little more. That would be pretty good coverage of that part of the market, I would have thought.
Indeed. And with the Patrol Nismo, that I think can dovetail with Mitsubishi's rally art aspirations moving forward, where they're going to put the rally art kit and ethos on their Utes and possibly all-wheel drive 4x4s moving forward. This to me is good news for people who are waiting and wanting a Patrol successor, because I think pre-COVID times, the volume was never enough really for Nissan to invest big on a Patrol replacement. But if you can imagine a Mitsubishi Pajero Ralliart and a Patrol Nismo or a Patrol Warrior kind of kind of co-op moving forward, because Nissan and Mitsubishi are now essentially controlled by the same
under the same umbrella.
Under the same umbrella. I think this gives license for Nissan to go down this path and develop a next generation performance SUV 4x4 to really take on the monolith that is Toyota in this field.
Yeah, it's exciting.
And of course, we found out yesterday that overnight last night that Mitsubishi is in fact reviving the Rally Art brand for vehicles, specifically for the Triton, I think initially.
Okay.
But yeah, so Rally Art's coming back to ostensibly, I suppose, to take on things like Nismo and GR. So we may just be entering a new dawn of Japanese performance. You never know.
Yes, in the strangest way possible.
In the strangest way possible.
And the other thing is with Patrol, and it's related to the Armada. It's also related to the Nissan Titan truck that we don't necessarily get in Australia. But all these vehicles, there's enough volume, I think, from a global perspective, for there to be these variants and for there to be evolution and development. We just hope that Nissan gives the Patrol the due, I think, respect in terms of being as good as it can be against the greatness that we're expecting the LandCruiser 300 series to be. Don't you reckon, guys?
Yeah, I think so. In a way, in that part of the world, it's a bit like Falcon and Commodore used to be. Patrol and LandCruiser have been such long-time competitors, and you have firm devotees in both camps, that swear by their rides. It's interesting if Nissan gets some love, how it might fare relative to that seemingly dominant LandCruiser.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. All right. Sorry, go ahead, Byron.
Just one more thing. As I'm talking to you, and I've got my carsguide.com.au story up, on the side are all these ads for, you can see on CarsGuide of what recent Patrols are going for, 2020 models. And Nissan must be kicking itself because they, before the COVID thing happened, they did reduce the price of Patrol as they kind of developed in order to keep interest up in this car. And now I'm seeing Patrol selling secondhand for way more than they probably would have cost more.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah.
I think Nissan should really strike while the iron is hot in terms of just getting it out there, getting the Nismo out there, getting the Worry out there, and just
because the other part of the whole equation is that people who may not have been considering that type of vehicle, who were going to travel overseas but are having a holiday domestically, might have bought a van and they need something to tow it with. So all of a sudden their gaze shifts to something altogether different. There's a real opportunity for them there as well.
Because initially we all thought that people were rushing into the LC200 to secure the last of the diesel V8s, because we know by now that engine's not going to continue with the LC.
That sounds very Mad Max, by the way.
Yeah. But that doesn't explain the Patrol's increase in any way, right? So so clearly it's more people traveling locally or domestically and towing big things behind them as they go. Exactly.
And it does that pretty well. So that's good. Thank you. That's a good discussion. And I'd love to hear what people think about the Patrol. It's, to my eyes anyway, it has been a relatively low-key player, but it's doing very well. Where do you stand with the Patrol, maybe relative to LandCruiser?
We'll put up a photo of the Nismo too. Believe me, it's anything but low-key.
They're a good point. Yeah, great point. Now, we'll move to our garage. And Chesto, can I start with you, please? In terms of the car that you've been driving in the last week or so. Yep. And it's electric. It's of the brand we've just been talking about, but quite a different vehicle.
Yeah, well, actually, it's interesting, isn't it? Because all these companies, Nissan being one of them, but there's plenty of others, somehow need to balance this development of sort of V8 petrol engines or new hypo diesel engines, or in Toyota's case, a new twin turbo V8 in the States, with this vast investment in fuel saving, right, of zero emissions vehicles, whether it's hybrid, plug-in hybrid, electric, or fuel cell. This one in particular is electric. I've been behind the wheel of the Nissan Leaf E Plus, which is actually going to it is a new Leaf, but it will sit alongside the existing model as a kind of new flagship in the range.
And as I've said before, it does equate to my score in maths through most of primary school.
Not just math. I think that was the average.
Probably across the board.
Well, this one is, look, the Plus is pretty straightforward. It ostensibly refers to a bigger battery pack, which has gone from 40 kilowatt hours to 62 kilowatt hours. Unofficially, it also can apply to the price. which is now $10,500 more expensive, starting at $60,490 plus on-road costs, which is not chump change by any stretch of the imagination, and certainly one of the more expensive mainstream electric cars in Australia.
Chester, I think you were referencing its proximity to, your entry point for a Tesla Model 3.
Is 62,900.
Wow.
So very, very close there. And look, the Hyundai Ioniq 2, which has not launched yet, Ioniq 5, I should say, has not launched yet, but I got up close and personal with through a video on carsguide.com.au, actually.
Oh my God.
Wasn't it CarsGuide?
Go easy. Stop it.
But that thing is like super cool, honestly. I mean, I have not driven it. It might drive like a bucket of bolts, but it is like just the look and feel and the technology in it is really super cool. And that's going to start in around the mid-6 as well. So it's up there with some pretty high, some pretty strong competition. Look, the critical element about it, I suppose, is the range. It now delivers. Bear with me as I just quickly find my notes. Now delivers 385 kilometres of driving range, up 115 kilometres on the regular Leaf. Nissan described that as enough for people who want to take sort of weekends away out of the city. It stops the Leaf being a strictly urban car and unlocks longer drives.
That's a big difference, yes.
A big difference. And there's also critically more power, which I'm just finding now as well. Usually I try to come into these things a little bit more prepared, guys, but I'm kind of just doing my best here.
No worries. We're all friends here.
I'm still thinking about the hazmat suit I have to wear when I finally see that Ioniq 5 that you've just been in, because you got so up close and personal with it.
Oh, dear.
Yes. Well, yes, there is a little bit of that.
Yeah. A DNA check just to make sure.
Correct. So it's 160 kilowatts of power now and 340 Newton meters of torque. That's up 50 kilowatts and 20 Newton meters. Brings the sprint to 100 kilometers down into 6.9 seconds.
Okay.
Which, look, in city car terms is not a bad number, really. And it does feel pretty perky when you're driving it. But in EV land, as we've all come to expect these sort of lightning quick sprints from EVs, it's not, particularly fast, is it? Let's face it. Nor has Nissan designed it to be, probably. But I guess the really big news about the E Plus is that, like all Leafs and some other EVs in Australia as well, it's equipped with this thing called vehicle-to-grid technology, which means that rather than simply using your house to charge your car, for example, you can use your car to run your house. So it can charge as well as discharge. Now, the technology hasn't actually been approved in Australia yet. There's a series of trials running around Australia at the moment, but I was at the launch of the E Plus as well, and they sort of swore on a stack of Bibles that it would be approved and launched sometime in 2021. And frankly, they're running out of months. So sometime over the next 6 months, you can expect to see this technology launch. And there's a guy called Tim Washington who runs, I guess, the key charging infrastructure.
Nickname George, obviously.
Yes, obviously.
Yeah.
A company called JetCharge, which works with most manufacturers to install charging infrastructure both at dealerships and at people's homes. So the easiest way to think of the increase in storage capacity in the E Plus battery is it's an extra day of power at your house.
Right.
So you could charge it at work, for example, bring your E Plus home, plug it into the standard Australian home, and get about 3 days power out of it.
Wow.
Without ever drawing from the grid.
Yeah.
And I was just going to say that the Leaf's positioning amongst the increasing number of EVs in the Aussie market it's a conventional car. It feels very familiar in terms of the way it looks and feels. That's its thing, isn't it? That it's not going to be confronting to someone coming out of an internal combustion car.
That's right. But blessing and a curse there too, JC, because we come to expect, I guess, something quite special from EVs when it comes to technology. And Tesla, really led that charge with their huge screens and fart sounds and all that ridiculousness.
Yeah.
So I guess the key drawback with the E Plus is that it doesn't necessarily have a sense of wow factor. Neither when you're driving it or simply sitting in it. It does very much just feel like a Nissan car. For some, that'll be a big positive. But if you like EVs because they're a bit special and cool, it is lacking some of that, some of that.
I would say, Andrew and James, that the positioning of the Leaf Plus is interesting because it's definitely a stopgap model for the Aria, the Nissan Aria range that's coming. Right. We know the Leaf is essentially the 2010 car with a different body, upgraded multimedia, and a lot of improvements. I used to own a Mark I Leaf. I had one for a few years. So, you know, and I found it a dear old thing in the same way that I find my Morris Minor a dear old thing. It really was. Like, you pot it around, you know, you drive it. I mean, it was fast enough.
Did it have the trafficators that come out of the beep?
The semaphore, the semaphore things. No, it's not quite that old. However, it's and it's not as old as the Patrol either. It's not.
That's
carbon date that car, right?
Carbon dating. That's a great headline for a story. Actually,
well, that's my Grindr profile now, isn't it? Carbon anyway, going back to the Leaf Plus, that pricing is quite high, especially for an older car.
It is.
But the Aria is the next generation, is the future, and is the direction that Nissan is going with its electrification. That and the e-Power, which is their plug-in, not plug-in hybrid, but
their answer to hybrid,
hybrid, where they've got a small engine, petrol engine, powering as a generator. So
cool. All right.
Well, to give Nissan its due, that Aria, I think you might have been there with me, Byron. I can't recall, but when we saw that at the Tokyo show, it's a pretty cool bit of kit too, inside out.
You wanted to get close and personal with that.
I did.
We're glad you were there to intervene, Byron. We'll leave. Sorry, go ahead, Chester.
What does that tell you about the price of that car? Now, look, officially it hasn't even been confirmed for Australia yet, but you know, we know it's a global product. It's almost certainly coming in.
It's not going to be cheap.
If this thing's $60,500, I do worry what that means for the Aria. That's going to be an expensive SUV, I reckon.
Anyway, you can segue by saying it's time to leave this topic here, James.
Yes, it is time to leave that topic, and we'll move to you, Byron, and we need you to give us an update on the Suzuki that you've been driving. It's diminutive. I, for one, love the look of it, but fill us in, please.
Yes, the car that started life as a concept IM4 back in the mid-2010s. You know, you want a Patrol Warrior or Patrol Nismo to go 4x4ing. Why don't you consider the Suzuki Ignis instead? Said no one ever.
It's highly inappropriate for that kind of driving.
Absolutely. But I'll tell you what, it's Australia's cheapest SUV. It's classed as an SUV, and I had doubts about this when I picked up this car, even though I went to its launch back in the day. It stands taller than a Mazda CX-3. Did you know that?
No, I did not. I wouldn't have believed it, but that's interesting. Okay.
And it's got the ground clearance. It's got the high hip point. So when you open the door, you can just kind of swing your butt around and inside rather than, having to sit,
climb in or climb down. Yep.
Now this car has taken on an added significance for two reasons. One, because, we're all obsessed with SUVs now and crossovers, but also it's one of the few new cars you can buy under $20,000. And, yes. So I have been driving it this week for CarsGuide.com.au. Read my review shortly. And I found it to be surprisingly capable. The car was launched in Australia in early 2017, and at that time, I found its steering to be a little bit light, a little bit disconnected feeling. The ride was too hard, and I just found it disappointing.
Okay.
But Suzuki has improved the vehicle. The facelifted version was unveiled early last year. We got it in the middle of last year. And because of COVID and lockdowns, particularly down here in Melbourne, we're just getting around to driving these cars.
Righto. Yeah.
And I found it to be exceptionally well suited to today's motoring. It has the base Swift's 1.2 litre K12C 4-cylinder engine married to a CVT, so it feels like a city car to drive.
Yeah,
but that's a great engine. Suzuki makes lusty, gutsy, revvy engines, and this is no exception in the Ignis. They've done something to the steering because it now handles the way a pretty much close to what a Swift does.
Good.
It's got great room. My model was the GLX, which is recently breached the $20,000 mark at $21,790, and that goes from a 5-seater to a 4-seater. But it's got a rear bench that is split and it slides and it reclines.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Which I think for the target market, you don't need a 5-seater in a narrow car. But and it's economical to boot. So
totally.
But what I found most is that because it's I live in a city suburb, I found that the ride height and the better vision that you get out of this car made it particularly suitable for urban environments. I think more people should turn on to this sort of car, and it looks great. As you know, it's got these retro cues from the 1970s.
And that's exactly what causes some people to dislike it. It tends to be black or white, isn't it? Quite polarizing.
Yeah. Now I'm going to I'm just going to say, I am going to be controversial by saying that I prefer it to the Jimny.
Oh, do you? All right.
Yes.
Okay.
I think that the Jimny certainly has its place, and it's Ignis certainly cannot go anywhere near what a 4x4 Jimny can, and I love the Jimny for what it does, but I think the Ignis deserves more love. And fun fact, the Ignis was originally sold in Australia from 2000 from a design that Peter Hughes did at Holden.
Oh, wow.
Which meant...
That's right.
And that car was, of course, the original Holden Cruise. 4x4.
Yes. Yeah.
So Peter Hughes under Mike Simcoe developed that car.
Yeah.
So the Ignis has
an Aussie connection.
So there you go.
Fantastic. Sorry, Chester, did you want to say something there?
No. When you were saying that the design was polarizing, I was just making the point that I was on the other side of the equation. I think it looks vaguely awkward, to be honest, but that's my viewpoint. However, I do agree with you, mate. I've rallied against the Jimny before. I think it's great as an off-roader, but I think if you buy one to live in an inner city suburb, which lots of people seem to do, I think you're mad. It's not.
You enjoy self-harm.
Not a great city car.
Oh, you don't. The Jimny rather.
Yeah,
very much so. And and the Ignis actually, it looks really cool with its flared wheel arches and its It's
it looks pretty tough. It looks like a mini muscle car in a way. All right. Well, I'm going to pick it up and just quickly fill you in on the Jaguar F-Pace that I was driving. R-Dynamic, HSE P400. It's a 3-litre twin-turbo inline-6, 294 kilowatts, 550 newton meters, and all that torque's available at 2,000 RPM. 8-speed auto.
Like you've just given us your text file number there. P400.
That's it. 294-550-2000.
And 86753.
It's an all-wheel drive, $110,404 before you put it on the road. So it's 0 to 100 is 5.4, which is rapid for sure, but it's the torque that you really notice. It's got plenty of that, 550 newton meters. It's quiet. I noticed it was very quiet. The sound insulation, the way it's been damped in that regard is pretty great. It's comfortable. Multimedia, it's got a new screen, so it's had a facelift and it's had upgrades. It's got a new multimedia screen, and the interaction is really easy, very intuitive. This one's got the leather, it looks good, it's very roomy for its size. The only thing I was really, I'd pick out as a niggle with it is the engine, this Ingenium 6-cylinder. It's almost reluctant to pick up the throttle and get going. It's not a linear kind of throttle response. So from step off, when you're trying to get going, you're like squeezing the throttle and you have to push it just that little bit further and woof, off you go. So it's not as greasy smooth as you'd like it on takeoff. But once you are going, and there's a normal and a sport mode, and it'll start to be a little bit more aggressive on the gear changes. It's a fun, quite engaging car to drive, but I just didn't like that so much. Sorry,
JC, just quickly, I've been fortunate enough, I reckon, to do maybe 20 of these podcasts so far, maybe 25. I'm still waiting for you to drop below the 6-figure barrier.
No.
Unbelievable.
No, it's pure coincidence. There are other podcasts where it's, other vehicles. It's just
getting around in the $20,000 SUV. You're rocking around in this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Soon you'll be hitting the 7-figure mark. We don't write for KardashianGuide.com.au. You know that, don't you?
That'd be an interesting site. That would be an interesting site. But
anyway, sorry, we digress.
It's an SQ5 Audi, X5 maybe upper end of X3, Range Rover Velar, Merc GLE, that kind of world.
Yep.
And so if you're into that premium Euro focused SUV, this is a perfectly capable one. And I think the facelift, just subjectively to my eyes, is a success. It looks just that little bit smoother and sleeker on the outside. And I found it a very enjoyable car to drive for the week.
Awesome.
There you go. So now let's just get into a bit of feedback from last week. And last week we were talking about a story of yours, Byron, which was the Utes that we can't have, but should, because, fair sucker to Sav, we invented the thing. And we can't have these Utes, the Santa Cruz, Hyundai, Ford Maverick, which is upcoming, Honda Ridgeline, which has been in the States for yonks, and Fiat Strada, which is a bit of an outlier, but was fun to look at. Now, Grudland74 says, guys, you should be spruiking hard about these models. Remember when Ford took away production, they promised one Ford. So we were led to believe that we'd get more global products here. Also, the Maverick can fit Ford Escape engines that had a mighty diesel and a turbo petrol. Now, my recollection is that one Ford was Alan Mullally. It was a little bit earlier. I'm not exactly remembering what was said when Ford, closed local production. So where Australia is still a design and engineering homeroom is the Ford terminology. That's right, isn't it, Byron?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
So we do participate in all of that. But what do you make of that thought that we were promised, lots of toys and we'd get global product when local production for Ford was shut down?
Yeah.
Is that your recollection?
Yeah. Well, I think there's always been one rule for Ford in America and one rule for Ford in the rest of the world. And
right.
that is even during this Mullally era. So you're right, the Mullally era, one Ford philosophy. The Mustang was still only America, was only America only. The F-Series truck continues to really be left-hand drive only.
Yeah.
And they seem to have kind of reined that in anyway, because we're getting now things like the Explorer, that we're seeing things like the Explorer and the Bronco, and there's other Fords that we're simply not in line to get. And,
yes.
And it's a little bit frustrating because it just shows the focus of, no pun intended.
Pardon the pun.
yeah. Of the Ford's US operations, that it is an American company, but Ford really, in America, really needs to remember that Australia is very much built on this brand being part of our cultural fabric, and particularly now that Holden's gone, and it just annoys me that we are very much second tier. And of course, as I said in the article, we pretty much invented the car-based coupe.
It was a person in Gippsland, Victoria.
That's
was
right.
it not? Yeah.
It was Lou Brandt, who wrote the letter about his wife needing to be transported to church on Sunday, and the pigs
to market
the the rest of the week. So on Monday. So we hope that these car-based Utes, look, they will eventually come to Australia. Someone's going to bite the bullet, because as emissions and weight requirements and kind of congestion dictates that people will have or will need to drive pickup trucks that are they're kind of more efficient. Someone's going to bite the bullet, and I reckon it's going to be Hyundai or Kia that brings something in like the Santa Cruz, which of course is the car that I think should definitely come to Australia. Don't you think, guys?
I do. I do, for one.
I've pondered this a bit lately, actually. I wonder if anyone would buy them, without those emission pressures, which we don't have in this country at the moment.
Well, not yet.
If we were to launch it for Santa Cruz now, how do you think it'd go?
Well, look, it's conjecture, isn't it? I think it would do pretty well, but it's a good segue into Senior Bob, our old mate Senior Bob, who had some very nice things to say about the podcast. Thank you, Senior. But he says Santa Cruz in Australia, all caps, no way. The days of Brumby and Proton, which was the Jumbuck, are over. Aussies have moved on way further than even the current Ute offerings. And he's given his manifesto, his Ute manifesto, which is Coyote V8 Ranger, yes, please. Bronco, Ford, take my money. Petrol, please. Ford Maverick, nope, no point, useless, will not sell. Byron's right about picketing Ford dealers, but not for that stupid 1.5 litre Maverick. Picket them for Bronco.
I've got to say I agree, Jason. I'm with him so far.
Ridgeline 3.5 V6 petrol could work here. Looks good. Honda quality. Petrol, about 10 exclamation marks. Senior Bob is a big fan of petrol engines. Brazilian Fiat Strada, lame. Fiat dodgy quality, but even worse, it's built in Brazil. Forget it. Ford might as well bring the Brazilian Ford Troller T4. And I, for one, had to put my hand up to not being familiar with the Troller T4. Did a bit of digging.
I think
and it was. Have you? Brazilian company, because Ford has pulled out of Brazil as far as production goes, it's kaput too, as far as I understand it. But for people on YouTube, we'll have a few pics of it. Interesting looking thing in its most recent iteration. Yeah. So there's a very strident opponent of Santa Cruz.
I'll just interject for 1 second. I kind of tend to I don't agree with all of that, but my view on Utes in this country is that they have progressed so much further than tools of work, right? They are undeniably now tools of image. It's all about the image of the Ranger Raptor. It's all about the image of your beefed up whatever. Because, let's be honest, 99% of the customers who buy those vehicles aren't using them for strictly what they've been engineered for, right? So I do wonder, in that kind of macho big ute world, who is going to be the first one to pull up in a Santa Cruz and say, it gets really great fuel economy and I can put it in the back.
I disagree.
Richard was using the acid test of his street, where he lives in the semi-inner west of Sydney, that he thought it would be torched. It would probably end up upside down, graffitied, and on fire because people.
Not in the inner west. That's where I live.
I know you do. Well, you'd be the one doing the torching, or if you turned up to the campsite, your credibility would be lacking. Was his thought?
Yeah, unless it was a camp site.
Yeah. Now, Byron, you were going to say something. Sorry, I cut you off.
Yes, I was going to say that. I think that. I think there's room for both. I think there's room for big macho, heteronormative trucks that are just, like big macho things. And I think that for the rest of us, there's trucks, there are pickup trucks, replacements for the Falcon and Commodore Ute style, lightweight, economical, urban friendly things that, frankly, I don't have kids, but, I wouldn't want my 18-year-old daughter or son to get their P plate in a 15-year-old Triton or Courier or whatever, with its dodgy brakes and no safety. I think that these sort of things should be taken into account when people buy cars for work and pleasure and leisure. So I think a car that's based on the excellent Kia and Hyundai mid-size SUV platform with all the safety and the driving systems, as well as the environmental things, makes sense. And I feel that there is definitely a market for.
I think I'm on that side of the fence too, for what it's worth.
And I think, why not have the choice of Santa Cruz? Why are people just saying, "Oh no, it's one or the other"? We can have a Maverick, we can have a Bronco. My point is that we want more choice of cars that people want, and when it's a choice that goes towards better safety and more environmental credential type thing, why not?
All right. Well, it's good.
If I could just label a quick counter argument there, you could argue that in Australia already does offer plenty of choice, and the answer is almost exclusively Ranger and occasionally.
That's true.
That's a big car. I've got friends who are under 5'5" who want to drive those cars. They can't even reach the bed.
It used to be just wooden blocks on the pedals, I think, was the answer to that one. Now, Senior also was inquisitive and wondering what the picture I had in my background last week was. He said, "What's the Nissan as my background?" But Blake, another commenter, was onto it. And it's the Nissan IDX, which was a Tokyo 2013 release. I was there for that. So there were two versions of it as a concept, the NISMO and the free flow version. NISMO was all carbon, fat rubber, side pipes, projected to have a 1.6 litre turbo, very much an echo of what we'd call the Datto 1600, but was a 510 in North America. And the free flow was just beautiful. It was your more civilized civilian type version with different headlights, and they were saying it would be a 1.2 to a 1.5, but it never happened. And a lot of people were disappointed because they were just such fantastic looking cars. So it was an IDX.
Awesome.
Now, To finish off, in our Ute discussion, we did go off on a sidetrack around panel vans and the heart-shaped divider between the front seats and the Flicati rug in the back, and if it's rocking, don't bother knocking, etc. And Brad Parker said, lads, the new panel van's the rooftop tent. And most cool kids leave them on their roof all the time for convenience. Like the panel van, you never know when you might need it, wink emoji. The only downside is fuel consumption and underground car parks, but it's worth it. and Hammer Rock said the Toyota LandCruiser 78 Series Troopy is the new panel van. You can easily fit a mattress at the back with space to spare. So thank you very much for the update on that, of course. We had not thought of the Troopy. But speaking of other things we haven't thought of, it's time for MuskWatch. Okay, first of all, big announcement on Twitter, where else, during the week, that Tesla is no longer accepting Bitcoin as payment for its vehicles. And that's because the dear leader has discovered that Bitcoin mining is not very green. It relies on fossil fuels in terms of electricity used to churn these, computations and whatever that goes into creating these cryptocurrencies. He won't accept it as payment for the cars. But the Daily News reports that Bitcoin fell 17% on the back of that one tweet.
Can I just make a quick point that the dear leader discovered something that was already very well known by the rest of the world?
Precisely.
Reading an amazing article about Bitcoin that said that it basically takes the annual power consumption of Argentina to mine Bitcoin.
I think it was the Netherlands.
Argentina, New Zealand, or the Netherlands, I think.
Right.
And,
well, there you go. Yes, to generate it.
The idea being that it is incredibly bad for the environment, much worse than cash money.
Right. Well, the New Daily was talking about reports of a green Bitcoin could be the next thing. But Sats, who was commenting on Twitter, said, 1, buy and promote. 2, do research. Months later, my man. That's Elon. Rebel Alliance, OAM, says the master market manipulator now enters a new phase.
Yeah.
And in response, Brihas Dad says, wonder if and when he's been buying and selling Bitcoin. So they're seeing it as a big play to reduce the price. He might buy more. He's manipulating the market again, which is very cynical, but possibly true. Then Mark W. Yusko says, so by this incredibly twisted logic, you can no longer accept currency for your cars because banking transactions consume thousands of times more energy than Bitcoin transactions. Oh, yeah, and can't sell any cars in China since most electricity comes from coal there. And various others just saying they've lost all respect for him, deeply disappointed. And my mind went to rockets, that maybe rockets aren't the most environmentally friendly thing to be chucking up in the atmosphere.
And all that
environmentally. Exactly. Andrew C. Laufer Esquire says, you're a smart guy. So you know that a Tesla uses a lithium battery charged with electricity that's generated by fossil fuels. So what's the real reason you're dumping Bitcoin, champ? And Spiro Agnew's ghost says, because it's made up, manipulated pile of trash, nonsense, that is the number one haven for money launderers currently. And that's another strong theme with cryptocurrencies.
Yeah.
But Dan Harvey finished off by just saying, any chance of buying Coventry City? So there's a Premier League team in trouble, needing a buyer. But the other big news during the week, and we speculated last week that Elon's appearance on Saturday Night Live could be the first domino to fall in the end of the world, that basically the apocalypse was going to happen because he appeared. But the world didn't end. But what we do know is that Saturday Night Live writers are even better than they thought they were. For anyone that watched it, just an incredibly cringy opening monologue, which was on Mother's Day, and his reference to his mum, May, who was there and spoke with him on stage. And Byron, you and I have agreed she is some kind of fembot android, not a human being at all.
He may very well have built her. You never know.
He may have built her. That's right. That's a great point. But anyway,
I had to try. I went searching for who this person was because her accent was so otherworldly.
Yeah.
What
exactly.
program is it from?
She's Richard Berry has a flame in his heart for May Musk. He's very attracted to this woman. She's an older fashion model who writes books and is anyway. Yeah, let's leave it there. But in one of the sketches, Elon was dressed as Wario in court, accused of killing Mario. And he's speaking with an Italian accent. And in going through the comments, Wario is meant to be German, so people were taking offense that he was speaking in an Italian accent. Grimes, his partner, was Princess Peach, who was also speaking with an Italian accent. She's not meant to do that. No. But just this one sketch on YouTube had 4.6 million views, 35,000 comments, and respect to SNL for leaving the comments function enabled on this thing. Because Saf Broface says, I watched this when I was super tired and legit thought I was hallucinating. And Emma Ojeda summed it up beautifully and speaks for a lot of us when they said, finally, a you laugh, you lose challenge, everyone can actually win. And it was from a comedic point of view, it was a disaster.
What were they thinking having him on? It's just so bizarre.
I've got no idea. The guy is a piece. Stroke. He's a piece of 2x4, really. In terms of personality, he is. Well, there isn't one.
It was a masterstroke, I think. Just
well, the numbers prove it, don't it?
Yeah, exactly. Saturday Night Live has never had so much promotion, I'm sure. Anyway, look, Tesla, the share price, it's down again. It's under $600 now, nearly $590. So it's lost $80 in the last week. It was 670 odd. And Opto is saying, is there any upside left in Tesla's share price? And it's a theme that we've been touching on, and various media outlets have been touching on as well. It's like people are kind of waking up. Most recently, a better than expected earnings and production announcement, but the share price hasn't bounced. It's in fact continued to kind of trend downwards. And that's largely because, according to Opto, fewer EV manufacturers are relying on purchasing tax credits from Tesla. And people are realizing that that's a big part of the company's kind of profit engine is coming from these EV.
If memory serves, it's the biggest. They make out of credits and they do anything else. And that is a real trap flaw in the business model, because we're getting to a point where other manufacturers simply will not need them.
Precisely. So it's leading to a fundamental reevaluation of the business. And the car business actually suffered an underlying loss. It's just, the crypto and the credits that are keeping things going at the moment. So, okay, they're making money, but it's not in the way you might think.
Yeah.
And there are problems in China. The Giga Shanghai plans to expand that have been shelved. Brands like NIO and I think it's pronounced Peng, it's XPENG, and Li Auto are taking market share. So Chinese people are looking for, more affordable alternatives, and they're doing well. So yeah, maybe we have reached peak Tesla, and what's going to take it back there? We remain interested to see what comes.
Nissan Patrol Warriors and NISMO. That's what's going to take.
Exactly. That's where it's at. That's where it's at. But with that, we have reached the finish line. And I want to say thank you, Byron.
Thank you, mate.
And thank you, Chester.
Thank you, everyone.
And thanks to our production solutionist, codependence manager, and indoor cricket coach, Mr. Pritchard, for his tenacity in dotting the show's I's and crossing its T's. Today, he's wearing a T-shirt saying, "And yet, despite the look on my face, you're still talking." Celine Dion pants and baseball shoes. No, not shoes you wear to play baseball. Baseball shoes. Let us know your thoughts. You can find CarsGuide on Facebook and Instagram, or email us at comments@carsguide.com.au. If you're an Apple podcast listener, please rate and review us. Remember, you can also watch us on YouTube. And if you are already, make sure you subscribe to the CarsGuide YouTube channel so you can stay on top of all our latest content.
And we all read the comments, guys, so get involved.
We do. But before we go, talking to an older, wiser mate of mine earlier in the week, and he was telling me, back in my day, you could walk into Repco with $50 and walk out with a set of brake pads, 6 spark plugs, a new battery, 5 litres of oil, a fan belt, and a set of roof racks. Can't do that today. Too many fucking cameras.
What do you miss, JC? What do you miss?
Is that from experience there, James?
Maybe.